The Bears leave the weekend with a mixed bag of news regarding Luther Burden's injury, Ozzy Trapilo's injury, and Zavion Thomas, and my biggest takeaways from this weekend's training camp. Let me tell you something. There's still a lot of reasons to be excited about this team. All that and more on today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Let's go. Now, if you are new to the channel, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the page. You do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. Only channel talks Chicago sports, how Chicago talks. So make sure that you stay in tune with us, man. All right, let's jump straight into the injury updates because there's kind of a lot to get to here because we've got so many different names going into this. Starting off with Luther Burden. Luther Burden, who got tangled up with Tyrique Stevenson over the weekend, came down awkwardly in that Saturday practice, and there was a lot of speculation on, what was going to end up being the outcome for Luther Burden, and it seems like we now have that, as Adam Schefter reports that Luther Burden is expected to miss the entire preseason after suffering a strained groin during Saturday's practice. The encouraging news on this, though, because it does suck that he's essentially going to miss the entire rest of camp, and there's going to be this ramp-up part that comes into, he was hooping, right? But the encouraging news is the Bears currently believe that Burden should return for the regular season opener against the Carolina Panthers. Now, take all that with a grain of salt. You heard what Ben Johnson said about those Adam Schefter reports, but as much as we would like to be like, yeah, Ben's gonna be the one to tell us all the massive news, we know that Schefty is plugged in and probably does have some pretty good connections within that building. So I'm not gonna besmirch either name in this. To me, though, missing preseason, while it does suck, the procedural things that you're going to end up going through, I don't think it's as big of a deal as him getting healthy is, right? And the reason I say that is, when I look at preseason, what is preseason for, right? You're trying to go through the motions of what you're going to do on a game day, and then you want to get out and you want to execute whatever it is your game plan is for that day perfectly. And when you got the starters in there, right, like it's kind of cool to see. But what do we always say after every preseason game? Well, you're going vanilla. You're just doing procedural stuff. It's not real yet. It's not going to be indicative of how the team looks heading into the regular season. I don't think anybody that I can think of as of recently who's dominated the preseason has gone on to win the Super Bowl, because you end up getting your starters out of there usually pretty quick, right? You're just trying to stay healthy as you go through the season. And so for me, I look at the preseason as something that can be helpful, but with what the Bears do at practice already, you're kind of getting that feel, like it is the live game feel, playing against somebody else, taking the hits and different things like that. But the Bears are going to be doing joint practice versus the Cincinnati Bengals and versus the Tennessee Titans. And the one thing that we can guarantee is that both of those teams probably are going to play a little bit harder than what the Miami Dolphins did last year, because they were embarrassed by that, and then the game happens and they try to talk trash, and then you went into the season and you had a terrible season. Everybody ends up getting fired. But it all started there. Like, people started to look at the Dolphins in a bad light because of that. So I think, to me, the Titans probably end up coming out a little bit more aggressive, playing more to Ben Johnson's style. The Bengals kind of that same way. Not to say that you want anybody to get hurt, but you do want to be physical. You want to practice how the Bears are going to practice, because if you don't match the intensity, you will get embarrassed in there. I think the Bills did a really good job of that in the second joint practice that we saw last year. So I say all that to say, a lot of the hitting, a lot of the tackling, a lot of the, the live periods that are going on, the Bears are already doing that within their own practice, which is why we've seen so many of these injuries. And I think you're going to see teams match that intensity in the joint practice, and maybe not so much in the preseason game. And I would doubt that Ben is going to throw the starters out there if he feels that you're not getting as much from that game as you are from the joint practices. I think he threw them out there last year because they were still figuring out a lot of the stuff that needed to be done within the scheme. This team understands the scheme now. And so I don't view missing preseason as a massively major issue. I don't think it's more important than Luther Burden getting himself back healthy 120%, because here's the bottom line on all of it, right? It's a groin injury, and we have seen how those groin injuries can linger into the season. In fact, even the term expected back in that, I mean, we can view week 1 right now as a current target, but I wouldn't say that that is a guarantee. I wouldn't say that you go out there and just, yep, he'll be back week 1. I'm not worried about anything. This is a groin injury. You take your time with it, and you have the talent on this team that affords you that time. You know what? Connection looked great over the weekend as Luther Burden was missing his time. Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, and Caleb Williams and Jade Walker, and Caleb Williams the Khalif Raymond, and Caleb Williams the Scotty Miller. Like, it didn't change. Like, I love Luther, and I think Luther has more talent and can do more in tougher situations if you put the ball in his hands. That will be important, but that will be much more important as you get deeper into the season. And so for me, make sure that Luther is 110% healthy. If you do that, you are going to be very much okay with him missing that preseason, because what you don't want to do is he comes back week 1. It's too early. He pulls it again. Now he's missing, 6 to 8 weeks because of a groin injury. We saw that happen last season as well. I think you take as much time as you can with Luther. Let me know how you guys feel down in the comments below. Do you think that the Bears should slow play this thing with Luther Burden, and are you concerned that he's going to be missing the preseason? Is that valuable time for you? Let us know how you guys feel down in the comments below. It does suck, right? Because Luther Burden was hooping, and the fact that he gets banged up, and a lot of these guys are getting banged up, but the fact that he gets banged up on a play that you've seen him do 100 times versus Tyrique Stevenson, who's also having a really, really good camp. You want to talk about bouncing back. You want to talk about earning trust. If it worked, if the call out worked, I should say, like, he is doing all of the right things, getting his, I believe, 3rd interception yesterday on Caleb Williams. So we'll talk more about that as we recap what we saw from camp over the weekend. I've got 2 massive takeaways on that. Let's talk about the Ozzy Trapilo injury, because Albert Breer reported in his article in SI that he put out, I believe this was this morning, that Ozzy Trapilo might be progressing towards a return sooner than initially expected. Now, he didn't expound on that. He didn't go out there and give a timeline or anything, but he was there this weekend. I saw him up at Bears training camp along with Colin Cowherd, who, all right, Colin, welcome to the Bears train. Like, he's all in now. You see Colin now, he's all in. All right, welcome, Colin. But listen, like, just hearing that he's standing down there, he's talking with Ryan Poles, and hearing that he could be returning earlier than expected is a good thing, especially dealing with the injury that he had, right? I mean, he started 6 games last season for the Bears. He was phenomenal, and probably 5 of those 6 games, maybe even 6 out of 6, although that first start maybe a little bit more rocky. Technically played in 7 games because he came in the middle of a game, so maybe that's the start I'm thinking of. But he ended up tearing his patellar tendon during that wild card round, and that's an injury that it's very, very difficult to come back from. He's attacking this rehab apparently very aggressively. I would say, take as much time as you need to come back. But if you get to a point where you feel like you can get back out there, I mean, given the severity of the injury, there were massive questions on how much time he could miss. There was anything between, 8 months to a year, to some people need more than that. Maybe you need a year and a half to get back. Maybe he needs this season and next offseason. But it sounds like Trapilo could be back into the Bears fold sooner than we think, which for me would mean at some point this season. And that'd be a massive development with the fact that Braxton Jones just went out. We don't yet know the severity of his injury and how much time he's going to miss. I mean, but that experience that you can have back in there, somebody who's played in the playoffs, somebody who is, because here's the tough part that of the situation that Ozzy was in, that, as much praise as I've was giving to Braxton for, being able to fight through and proving that it was his job to have. The struggles that we've seen from Jedrick, which seem like they continue. Karan Amagaji basically not being able to play football. He looks god awful out there. He looks god awful out there. But the one thing that that Ozzy Trapilo has over all of them is he's got a playoff game that he played very well in and did a lot of good things. That's experience none of the rest of these Bears left tackles have. So as you're heading into the playoffs, being able to get somebody who has been there, who's felt the rush, who's felt what it feels like to be in a playoff scenario, I think that would be very, very impressive for him to come back, 1. And 2, I think it would be a stabilization that this offensive line needs. Now, what does sooner expected mean, right? It doesn't mean that he's going to return imminent, but it means that there are encouraging signs in his rehabilitation, right? Maybe Ryan Poles was saying he's going to be back middle of next season, and he's going, well, sooner than expected. He could be back at the start. I'm not telling you that, you know, with Ozzy, there's anything that has changed about the timeline. I just think that maybe the timeline could now be this season. And if that is the case, that would be a key acquisition for the Bears. Now, the biggest question, of course, is going to be, you know, whether Ozzy can return to the form that he was pre-injury. The biggest things with big guys like that is the guys who return back to form to what they were pre-injury is very, very low percentage number. I think it was 14% of guys have returned. I got to double check that, so don't run with that just yet. But I believe that it was like around 14% of players who were offensive linemen returned to playing at the level that they were before that. But just being back on the field would be an improvement, right? We can worry about what he's going to be when he comes back. Right now, it's just about getting him back, and it's very good to hear that he could possibly be back here sooner than expected. And then we got to get into a Zavion Thomas update. And you know what? This was one over the weekend that I thought was, you know, I'm not going to say it was massively concerning. He walked off under his own power. It was kind of a weird situation when he got banged up, right? It was, again, like very much like Luther Burton, doing things that we've seen him do the entire camp. But per Courtney Cronin, she reports that Zavion Thomas is not expected to miss significant time after leaving Sunday's practice during 7-on-7s with a knee injury. He's been dealing apparently with some soreness in his knee already, and he's currently diagnosed day to day. The expectation is that though he shouldn't be sidelined for too long here. And to me, like, this is a player that when you saw him go out, you went, oh, that's a key piece to what Ben's been doing. That's a piece that I think, you know, you think of the speed, you think of the size, and you go, oh, here's another Velus Jones. No, like, this guy can run routes. This guy can get people off of him incredibly easy, and he's got that take the top off speed that has been so beneficial to what the Bears want to do. Like, there's just so much value that I think that he brings to this offense in year one of this thing, and he's still figuring a lot of the stuff out. Like, his special teams ability alone could be a loss for you if you were to miss out on Zavion Thomas. But again, very good to hear that it seems like he's going to be back sooner than expected. Now, we know how this goes, right? That day-to-day designation always can change, and we've seen day to day go to week, go to month, go to year. Like, we have seen just about everything when it comes to the injury circle with the Chicago Bears. But at least for now, yeah, and I think what we can say about this new regime and this new coaching staff, they're very honest when it comes to guys being banged up and comes to guys that they trust and don't trust. They've talked about Zavion Thomas as a player that they trust in a lot here early on. And I love how Dennis Allen broke it down with Jordan Vandenberg yesterday when we were talking about him. And he was like, listen, when you give him an opportunity with the threes and he keeps popping up, all of a sudden you got to find ways to give him an opportunity with the twos. When you give him an opportunity with the twos and he's still popping up on your radar, now all of a sudden you got to figure out how to get him an opportunity with the ones. And if he's showing up then you know you have something, and you have to trust your eyes. I'm trusting my eyes on this one, ladies and gentlemen. Zavion Thomas is going to be a massive part of what Ben Johnson wants to do. And I think that's going to be something very big, that his injury is not something more long-term. Now, we don't know the severity of the knee or what that's going to be. Hopefully it is just some soreness that he is dealing with. You also have to understand this is all new to him. He's never been in a situation where he is where he has to just go out there and do nothing but play football. He's never been, right? Everything else is football, is in between class, it's in between school, it's in whatever it is. This is the first opportunity, and a lot of guys deal with this when they come to the league, where you get this much football this fast, this often. And so I think that could be something that he's dealing with in there as well. Could just be something he tweaked. You never know. But the fact that it's day-to-day, very excited to hear, because I think he's going to be a massive part of everything that this Bears organization wants to do this year. Let me know how you guys feel down in the comments below on these injury updates. Are you concerned by any of them? Do any of them get you excited here? Because it seems like the Bears should be pretty healthy and ready to go by the time we get to the start of the season, minus the guys who, have longer standing injuries. Even to that, right? Like, We've seen Shamar Turner doing some things individually. TJ Edwards is back out there, right? Like you're starting to see, even with some of the injuries the Bears do have, you're starting to see those mainstay players find their way back onto the field. So for all the people who are out there and they're like, we gotta practice softer. We don't want to be doing. No, you don't. This is how championship level teams practice. This is how you build championship practice habits. And unfortunately, sometimes there are casualties within that. This is football. Football is a very tough game. It's great to have all the pieces when you get to the start of the season, but if all the pieces don't know what they're doing, then what do you really have? So to me, I love what Ben Johnson is doing. You know what I mean? Like maybe you have to adjust some things to make it maybe take away one of the padded practices or take out, one of the live periods. Even though they're kind of all live whenever they have pads on, these guys are just kind of maniacs whenever they put pads on. But I don't think you change too much about the process that you're going through. Like I said, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Now I want to get to my two biggest takeaways from training camp. And I know, a lot of shows, and this is not a shot, I think it's very valuable. A lot of shows come out and they tell you guys every single rep, every single snap that happened at camp, right? This is what happened during 11-on-11. This is how it went down the list. And that is fine, but there's so many people doing it. And I feel like no one gives their big takeaways or what they're seeing that makes you think that, yeah, these plays are working, but how are you going to shape the team? And so still give you some of those things, but I really want to talk about the qualities that this team is exhibiting that I think really are going to help them as we get to the season. My number one takeaway, and Dennis Allen saying trust the eyes, I think really is something that you kind of have to do here with this Bears defense, because it's very easy to just go, I don't believe they're talented. You don't have a defensive line. I'm out. One thing that I continue to see is this run defense might be better than I expected it to be. Not because of talent. I don't think it's because instantly I believe the Bears have this overwhelming talent on the defensive line and they're going to just dominate teams as they get off of the ball. But what continues to stand out in team periods in 11-on-11 is the play recognition. And that's the part where, the being in the second year of a scheme with a lot of the same pieces on that defensive line could be beneficial to this team. The defense, it truly appears to diagnose the run plays very fast. And you're not reacting after the blocks are happening, but in fact, you're reacting before the play is even run. And who are the names that you're seeing back there? Jack Sanborn finding his way into the backfield. Devin Bush with phenomenal speed. Ruben Hippolyte. I haven't talked at all about Ruben Hippolyte this offseason, but yesterday, even over the weekend in practice, Ruben Hippolyte was flying to run plays, not because it was like, oh, I think he's got this immense amount of talent, but he was beating the running back to the spot. There was a screen pass. Ruben knew the screen pass was coming no matter what. Beats the man to the spot. He's got the speed to do that. We always knew he had the qualities of that player, but the play recognition is really where it comes into place. And I think with those second-year players, you are seeing in the run game, they are meeting the running backs to the spot more often than the running backs are beating them there. Now, you can still get beat by good offensive line play, right? You're still seeing some really good holes open up, and I think we've seen some very large runs, phenomenal runs from DeAndre Swift. Kyle Monungai has been very tough in some of the runs that he's done. Zavion, I got to start changing my brain to say his name right. Zavion Ahmed, right, has been very good as well, and they're just hitting the holes when the holes are created, but you're not seeing nearly as many holes created because the linebackers know how to fill the holes, right? You're seeing the safeties come down and do a good job, even with some of the safeties being banged up, right? Like there's a lot of good that being in the second year of this system, I think, is affording this defense. And it truly does show you that, yeah, look, you got to have the talent. You've got to be able to go out there and make the tackles. But I think this is why they put such an emphasis on the technique this year, because how many times did we see, heck, in the playoff game versus the Packers, right? Like, they were meeting the running backs in the backfield, but you weren't tackling them. And so now all of a sudden you're gaining 8 yards on a play that should have been a 5-yard loss. How much does that change what the outcome of some of those games looks like last season? Again, I don't think that the talent is overwhelming. I look at what we've seeing from the defense in a lot of these 11-on-11 periods, and all the praise that we give this offense, the defense is punching back. They're fighting back fairly consistently. Yet again, we're seeing takeaways. Now, one of the passes that Caleb made, I think it was Xavier Woods, ended up getting an interception on the play. I mean, he threw up a bacon, egg, and cheese. I mean, it looked delicious to the defense. Like, it was a terrible pass, and just, to me, not a great decision. I don't know if he thought there was a flag on the play or what, but he just fired that thing up there. It was very out of place. A lot of the things that have, caused some of the turnovers that we have seen. Tyrique Stevenson got another pick as well yesterday. And it's just miscommunications in the defense, knowing the play, recognizing the play, being in the right spot, and being able to take the football away and go back the other direction with it. Right? Like there's a lot more give and take than what we thought it was going to be heading into this. It does feel like kind of an iron sharpens iron scenario. And do I think that this defense is fully iron as of yet? No, but could they turn into it? Yeah, if you're recognizing what offenses are doing like this. And I remember Deshaun Wright, I've said this a couple of times. Last year he said, if it's 3rd and 9, I know what the offense has to do, and I know how to play my man. And he led the NFL in takeaways, right? Like, that is the kind of mindset that this team comes with. And I think that's going to be very, very important as this team continues to take, those next steps, as this team continues to build, especially this defense, because if you can get 11 hats to the ball, it almost, not to say it doesn't matter the talent you have, but you're not going to just you're not going to be overwhelmed by what the offense is looking to do, because you're going to have enough bodies there to bring whoever it is down. You're not dealing with a Derrick Henry in his prime every single day. And so hopefully that is something that benefits this Bears team. My number 2 takeaway from the weekend, and something that has stood out to me the entire time, but I think you got to see it on display this weekend in a major, major way. Caleb Williams is showing genuine leadership. And did y'all just see that big old fly just come through? You got to die, brother. What are we doing right now? That was crazy. Now he's like all right, let me lock back in. Caleb Williams is showing genuine leadership that I think is going to be so much more beneficial to this team than maybe even some of the talent that he has. We've heard about it, but getting to see it on display, I'll give you an example, right? Like, it's small things for me that show that you're locked in, that everybody is on the same page, that everybody is pulling on the rope in the same direction. Whenever there was an offensive lineman who ended up on the ground, and this is a respect of, I know that you protect me. I know that none of this is possible without you. Caleb Williams is running over there to pick him up off the ground. Whenever there is somebody laying on the ground, an old lineman, and I'm not saying he doesn't do this for any other players, but I saw it. I think it was Tooney on one play, and then I want to say it was Jedrick Wills on another that I saw it. And I think Garrett Bradbury on the final time that I saw it, where Caleb runs over to him. He's like, yo, good stuff. Picks him up off of the ground. The quarterback doesn't have to do that. There's a ton of other guys that can do that on the field. And there's guys that are closer to him that can do that on the field. But Caleb is literally making sure that they see him being thankful for what they just did on a play in practice. That is a level of accountability and leadership that, yes, it's something small, but that goes probably the farthest way when it comes down to it, because now, maybe on that next block, Tony's pissed that he got knocked over, that he fell over. And it's not to say these guys were losing. Like, it was just you're in there fighting in the fray, and some of these were even run plays. You get knocked over, you fall down. But you see your quarterback there as one of the guys that's going to pick you up, and he's giving you a good job. He's telling you, let's do it again, baby. We're good. We got this. In the long run of things, that'll make offensive linemen go that extra mile. And even if it's just a little bit more, because I think this offensive line is serious about keeping Caleb Williams upright. Even if it's just going a little bit more, that little bit more could be the difference between you being an NFC title team or you being a Super Bowl team. Football is a game of inches. And I love seeing that quality out of Caleb because I have seen other quarterbacks who it didn't matter for. That's not as important. Because I'm thinking about what I have to do next. I think it also shows you that Caleb has a better grasp of this system. His head isn't swimming with all of the information. He can focus a lot more on the things that are happening on the field. Because he understands the information and knows how to implement the information. We saw him do it a ton at camp. Some beautiful, beautiful passes from Caleb Williams at camp over the last couple of days. I mean, you saw they put out the video, the absolute dot to Roma Dunze, but there was a play where he extends it to the left and it probably should have been a sack, ends up firing that ball up there into the hands of Jade Walker, who's wide open, running down the field for a touchdown, right? There's so many of those. Oh, now that he understands the system, the skill set can show in a massive way. Okay, this guy might be very, very dangerous. Something else that I saw Caleb do, and this is one where you legitimately just... You're just a good guy on the team. You're showing respect to everybody top to bottom. There was a play, I believe it was I believe Tyson Bagent was playing quarterback on this one. Gets the ball into the hands of Caden Davis. Caden Davis takes it down the field, cuts up the right sideline into the end zone. Touchdown. Oh, everybody's losing it. Everybody's excited. The O-linemen are running down there. They're high-fiving them. And like a dart, because, boy, I'll tell you what, you don't think, my concern with Caleb was the weight loss might, affect him a little bit with taking some of the hits. But, boy, it's a blur when he runs past you now. He's moving. And you see him, boom, you just see an orange blur, and I look down, and there's 18. On a play he's not in on a pass he didn't throw, running the entire, had to be 60 yards to get to the opposite end zone to congratulate Caden Davis on scoring a touchdown, gives them the up sign, they do the jump bump, and he's high-fiving them, he's excited. Caden Davis probably is not going to be on this team. But that's somebody that you need to build a relationship with just in case he's someone we need to rely on. Just in case he's somebody that gets called up with all of the Bears wide receiver injuries that they have right now. That is a true testament. When you're not involved in the play, you didn't have to do that, but he made the effort because he understands what it means to support every player on this roster. Even when the throws where Caleb makes a bad throw, Caleb goes back to the huddle. He's not doing all of that, right? He's like, that's on me. He's upset at himself. But the plays that I have seen where it is genuinely a good play, like perfect throw, man should be there, DB breaks in, either knocks the ball away or it turns into an interception. Those plays, you see Caleb kind of like after when he's out and he just kind of like, you got me. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I don't like that you did it to me, but that's good stuff. There's a respect that he affords everyone on this team. And I remember some of the biggest talking points about him was how he was going to be a bad leader, how he was a diva, how he was going to lead, teammates weren't going to like him because of his antics and stuff like that. Like, bro, he's not simply being called a leader just because he's a franchise quarterback. He's a leader of this team because every day I see this young man in practice, he is showing legitimate traits of leadership. And in the long run, that's going to mean a heck of a lot more than if he knows the playbook perfectly. because that means you're going to have a relationship with your team that sometimes you're just going to go, yeah, hey, you see it? You see it? I bet. And you're going to be on the same page because you've spent that time with these guys to get to know them and know their strengths and know their weaknesses and know their traits. That has me very, very excited for what this season is going to be. It's why I think that Caleb Williams is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. By the time we get to the end of this season, we're going to be heralding him as one of those top 5 guys. Because it ain't just about the talent. There's a lot of dudes that have talent. But can you go out there and get everybody moving in the same direction towards the same goal? Caleb Williams is doing that. Hey, man, we appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love as always. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Those are my 2 biggest takeaways from the weekend. Let me know some of your takeaways from the weekend. What did you see or hear about that got you really excited? As always, man, it is your boy, Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. Peace.